Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Blue Box Chapter Review. Today is Sunday, April 18th, 2021, and Blue Box Chapter 2 released today along with all the rest of the Shonen Jump stories. So to start off, to jump right into it, we have this beautiful, and I cannot stress enough how pretty this art is. It is Chinasu drinking an energy, I think that's an energy paste or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's not like a juice box. But yeah, she's drinking some supplement or some energy boost, and the title of this chapter is You Have to Go to Nationals. So it starts off with Chinasu saying, "Starting today, I'm in your care. I'm Chinasu Kano, and Taiki's whole family is welcoming him, and I'll just call them the Inomata household." So the Inomata household is saying like, "Come on, Taiki, come on. This is so cool." And Taiki's over there like, "Oh my gosh, she's in everyday clothing. I never see her in anything except athletic and school wear. Oh man, this is crazy. I never thought we'd be moving this fast," because I think that Taiki kind of had expectations in mind. You know, he'd get to know her slowly, and maybe as they grew closer, they might start spending a little more time together outside of school, and he never imagined that he would just be thrust into this situation where, boom, it's personal, it's very personal, because you gotta remember, in North America, we don't really have that, but in Japan, it's a big thing. You don't get to see their people's normal clothes at school. They all wear the school designated uniforms, and they really have to kind of restrain themselves because there's just a lot of topics that aren't allowed, styles that aren't allowed. It's just a big change going from being in public and being in school. So Taiki was not expecting to be just thrust into this situation where he has to be personal with Chinasu. And he notes that she's just chilling in her house. She's in her weekend clothes. She's walking up his stairs. She's standing in the kitchen with his mom and eating sushi. And he's chilling in his room and he says, "I cannot take, like, how much more of this can I take? Like, this is just overwhelming." And I get this so much. Taiki is such a relatable guy. Like, if the girl you liked suddenly started living with you, it's hard not to be kind of overwhelmed, because, you know, at first you're like, "Oh, she's cute, I like her," and then she knows your name and she started, you guys start talking and it's all cute and romantic, and then she's living with you and she comes into your room and says, "Oh, by the way, the bath's available. The bath I just got out of. It's available." And he does this more of a sport. He does more of the sports analogy we saw in the first chapter. He says, "Until now, I've been thrilled at advancing to the second round, but living under the same roof is Olympic level. I carry all of Japan on my shoulders." It's truly, oh man, just overwhelming. I can't say anything except I understand how this would feel. I could totally I totally sympathize with Taiki completely, and he's won my heart over after this chapter completely. He turns around after her opening the door and saying the bath is available, and he's like, "Oh no, that's her in her pajamas. Like, I'm not supposed to see this. Like, this isn't natural." And he picks up a volume of what we find out is Weekly Shonen Jump, because of course he does, and he notes that she's even prettier fresh out of the tub, which, I mean, honestly, kind of means that she is pretty, because I know in Japanese school you're not allowed to wear makeup, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into a look besides makeup. There's like just how you style your hair, what you do to your hair, and she probably has wet hair right now, and he says she's beautiful, just fresh with nothing, no effort put in. So that's how you know it's kind of real. And he says, I'll go as soon as I'm done reading this." And then she gets up right close and says, "Don't tell me, is that this week's issue of Shonen Jump? Or of Jump?" He says, "Hold up, way too close." And then he scrambles away. I understand that too. Being close to a girl is very nerve-wracking, and yeah, no, that's how I would act if the girl I really liked was just like coming up and leaning on me, and it's like, oh man. And this chapter is filled with a lot of those moments that are like, guys, this girl is cute, come on. Say it with me now. This girl is cute. A lot of those that are referred to in the last chapter review are in this. Just like that Shonen Jump, that Weekly Shonen Jump one right there, where she is looking at the Shonen Jump and she looks at him. She's grinning and he's like, "What is it?" And she says, "I was just thinking how lucky I am. It can be nerve-wracking living in somebody else's home. Even though our parents are good friends, I've only met yours a few times. That's why having you here, Taiki, the guy I see at morning practice, the guy who lets me borrow his copy of Jump, I feel so at ease." And I love this imagery because a lot of demon possession type stories have always been popular in Jump. You have Bleach, you have Yu Yu Hakusho, and more recently you have Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, which use a lot of imagery of being haunted by spirits. And it's interesting to see his gut-wrenching guilt be personified as this kind of spirit that is weighing him down. I find that so funny, and I almost find it as a meta commentary of Jump and the trends in Jump itself. And he says, "I'm still a guy. Is she not is she really not fazed by the idea of living with a boy? And this whole idea sprouts from, it's not the idea of living with a boy, it's about living with a guy that, you know, there's no restrictions on. He's not like her stepbrother, he's not this or that, he's just a dude, a school friend, some guy. It's different if he was like concerned, like, she's not really fazed by living with me, her stepbrother, but it's not. It's nothing like that. It's just, he's just some dude. And he walks into the bath and he's like picturing her showering and bathing, and it's relatable. And he's like, oh, if that's the case, then I'm only acting like an idiot, because he should feel so at ease too. He wants to kind of match her energy, but he's unable to. And last chapter review, I said something along the lines of, I think that this series is interesting and interested in telling the sports, but I kind of take it back with this chapter because it does like the sports, but it uses sports more as a backdrop to tell story so far. Like in this badminton game, he's telling Kyo, his best friend, about basically the whole thing. He's like, I live with her now, like, what am I supposed to do? And Kyo says, like, just make sure no one finds out you're living together. Like, she has a lot of admirers. If people found out you guys were living together, they'd be asking you all sorts of creepy and weird stuff. Like, just don't let it happen. And I think that it's really interesting to analyze the role that sports play in telling us about the personalities of the characters. It's interesting that I think that Kyo and Taiki are having this conversation divided by a net where it's almost a wall, but it's very see-through and it's very fitting. So he's allowing himself to kind of use this smaller wall to only let some of the information through, and he's not saying his true feelings. He's not saying like, yeah, I picture her in the bath every time, like, you know, I go for a bath right after she does. I'm embarrassed when she leans over my shoulder. He's not telling her all this stuff. He's just like, yeah, she's living with me. It's super weird. And then he says he wants to go to nationals this summer. He wants to prove himself worthy to himself. He wants to prove himself to himself and say, like, I am worthy to be considered. He thinks that he needs to prove himself to himself or to her or to whoever so he can say that he wants to date her. So he sets the goal of going to nationals, at least getting to them, not finishing or not winning, but getting to nationals. And Kyo asks, what? Taiki responds with, if I don't do even that much, I'll never be a good match for her. And Taiki, this is what I love about Taiki. Taiki is a shonen protagonist, but he's also just some guy. He's just a dude. So relatable. He says, Kyo's saying, like, it's almost impossible. Like, it's so rare. Like, what makes you think that you're gonna be the one? He says, I don't know. I'm just gonna go for it. And then they take a break, and then we see Hina again. Taiki is still working towards his goal. He's playing with someone else while Kyo is taking a break. And we see kind of, it's an interesting perspective of seeing an outsider's kind of opinion on the main characters. And Hina and Kyo talking, it kind of set, I don't want to be one of those people, but I think they'd be really cute together. And even Hina gets her own, yo, this girl is cute moment with the way she smiles when he says he really likes pushing himself beyond his limits, doesn't he? Yeah, this chapter is so good, you guys, honestly. And this art is just so dynamic and so rough. I don't know, I have something for rough, sketchy art. Gege Akutami, Tatsuki Fujimoto, now Blue Box with, I don't know its author. But yeah, the art is just amazing. And he's working out, and then he starts watching one of his games. He had someone record one of his games, and he's watching it on his phone while he's doing workouts. And then Chinasu comes in, and she says, what are you watching? And he's like, no, nothing. But then I think he realizes that could be taken in a weird way. So he said, I had someone record my game. Someone record my playing, so I was just checking. And she's like, oh, I want to see. Because she gets to watch him every now and then, but she's always working on herself, so she never really slows down to look over and say, oh, you're pretty good at badminton, man. And she says, I'm always watching you at the gym. Like, yeah, but I just don't think that it's proper watching, you know? It's just glances and like longing gazes. It's not truly like analyzing him. This, because she can watch it on the phone, she can analyze him and kind of see what he's doing right and wrong and see how he moves. Because I think her shock, and she says, awesome, just look at the way you react to such a fast shuttlecock and fly around the court. See, she's still figuring out that he's this amazing guy. She knows that he's an amazing guy, but she's just seeing the technicality to how amazing his moves are. And Taiki puts himself down. He says, nah, I'm still really slow. If I don't get out of my ready position faster, then the accuracy of my shots suffer. I can't just barely hit it back. I need to hit it with time to spare. And then he realizes that he messed up because his whole thing with nationals is he's doing doing it for himself, for Chinasu. He's kind of doing it for himself to prove that he's worth Chinasu's time, and so he didn't want to mention it to her, and he's like, forget it, I didn't say anything. And then she's like, you just said it, like, you're gonna go to nationals. Oh, and he's like, no. And she's like, wait, you're not going? He's like, I am going. You know, I'm gonna go. And then she says, wait here a second. And then she comes back and says, I want you to have this. And Taiki says, a wish ribbon? She says, I made this when I decided to stay in Japan. It's a reminder for me to make my wish come true. I thought I should put my resolve in physical form. When it falls off on its own, that means your wish is coming true. Of course, it's not really your thing. And then Taiki says, I'll gladly take it. A present from her. It's handmade. I'll treasure it forever. And then he ties it on and she says, it'll cut your circulation off that way. So she kind of just gently wraps it around and ceases. And then she asked him to please make it to nationals too. That's her asking him to prove himself worthy enough in his own eyes to ask her out. She clearly likes him too. Although it's not explicit, you can read it. Just by that one line, you understand that these two both kind of like each other. At least on an admiration level. I don't know if Chinasu's is necessarily like a crush, but it's definitely some sort of admiration. She wants to see him succeed. And then she says, now we match. Don't take too good care of it. And he says, I'll work so hard that this thing will break right off. Though that's easier said than done. And he folds over and he's like, now I like her even more. Every time I get distracted, I should do 30 more crunches. And that's the end of the chapter. I gotta say that this chapter was amazing. It introduced a lot of different elements and themes and dynamics that we didn't get to see beforehand. And if you think that the moving in subplot, the moving in route, was kind of cliche, I think that you are completely, well, you might not be wrong, it might be a little cliche, but it's being used kind of in an interesting way so far to progress the story and the relationships between the characters, and I'm really enjoying it so far. These past 2 chapters have been some of the most enjoyable things in Jump. Although I did like Black Clover and I did like some of the other series I'm reading, I think that this is only my 3rd favorite thing in Jump this week, behind My Hero Academia and Jujutsu Kaisen. So, I mean, look out, other series. Blue Box is coming to stay. Alright, so if you enjoyed this video, I would like you to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel, because I do this type of video every week for every chapter of Blue Box. And if you didn't like it, then leave a dislike and a hateful comment. I don't care. It's still engagement on my video, so in the end, you're still helping me out. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.